In the north of Myanmar, Chen Chen was defeated and became the strongest light infantry. Introduction. Reborn in the north of Myanmar, Chen Chen had not even had time to meet Ga Yaozi, but was first trapped on the battlefield. In order to survive, he had to embark on a path of selling military force as a mercenary. In this chaotic land, relying on his past life experience, he plans to give those mud-legged people who have never seen the world a bit of shock from the strongest light infantry. From gas cannons, to CQB tactics, from civilian to military drones, to the strongest 50-meter advanced barrage in war history. As for guerrilla warfare, field operations, interludes, and raids. In this regard, we are our ancestors. Year after year, Chen Chen's mercenary group became PMC and then a defense company. As his name resounded throughout the entire private military domain, he suddenly recalled. At first, I just wanted to return to my home country. Chapter 1. Crossing the Battlefield. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, get down. Get down. Hand grenade. Bring him back. Bring Chen Chen back. Don't show your head. Hurry up. Chen Chen suddenly opened his eyes, and he could feel someone dragging his armpit backwards, with the rapid sound of gunfire constantly echoing in his ear. Accompanied by the sound of gunshots was the crisp sound of metal objects falling on the cement floor, and that kind of noise was really familiar to Chen Chen. That is the sound of a grenade landing. Without any thought, his instinctive reaction caused his body to suddenly burst into a powerful force. He, who was originally limp on the ground, jumped up in an instant and then suddenly fell to the ground far away from the grenade. Boom! Almost as soon as he landed, the grenade had already exploded, and the huge shockwave made him numb all over, leaving only a sharp buzzing sound in his ears. If this round was not an offensive grenade, he should have died. Chen Chen stumbled and crawled a few steps before diving into a bunker apparently constructed by friendly forces. The friendly army around him dragged him behind the collapsed low wall and shouted loudly at him. But now Chen Chen couldn't hear any sound, he just looked around in confusion, unable to figure out where he was. A second ago, I was still comfortably eating the veteran barbecue, getting drunk and squinting. Then I opened my eyes and arrived at the battlefield. This is definitely not a dream, there will be no grenades in the dream, nor will there be soldiers holding 81 bars and frantically shooting. Without a doubt, it has traveled through. The question is, where are you wearing it? A bullet burst through the air and directly broke the neck of the comrade who had just pulled Chen Chen into the bunker. He didn't even have time to snort, so his head turned sideways at a terrifying 90-degree angle. The blood sprayed from the main artery rushed directly onto the leaves above his head, and then dripped onto Chen Chen's face. It's not hot, it's already cold. Chen Chen regained consciousness, and his ears finally regained some hearing. He heard a captain-like man on the left shouting to retreat. Looking around, he saw that this extremely hasty defense line collapsed instantly under the man's command. Everyone was running back, but they didn't even leave any cover. At this glance, Chen Chen concluded that although the people around him were wearing familiar military uniforms, they were definitely not the army he was familiar with. They don't have that kind of food. As the gunfire outside the cover grew louder and louder, he gave up the idea of understanding the situation and pulled the 8-bar off his deceased comrade, then quickly removed his carrying belt. Subsequently, the bolt was replaced and the fast and slow loading machine returned to its original position in one go. Just as the captain had already run a few meters away, he shouted loudly. Stop his mother running. Alternate cover. Immediately after, he half knelt behind the cover, quickly got up and immediately threw himself to the side. In a blink of an eye, he had already locked onto the 3 enemies rushing in front of him. Translate 2 steps to the right, and Chen Chen gave way to the enemy's forward shooting range. But just as the first enemy crossed the obstacle, 2 consecutive bullets accurately penetrated his brain from the side. The celestial cover exploded and flew, as if the hat had been knocked off. Chen Chen did not look at the fallen body, but immediately pulled his gun to the right, pulled the trigger, and a short shot directly knocked down the two people who were still running. "Don't run. Turn around and shoot for cover," Chen Chen shouted again. He knew that there were only these three enemies approaching, and as long as the friendly army turned around to cover up, he could still retreat. What made him angry was that no one listened to him, and even the captain was running towards the distant building without caring. His mother fool. Chen Chen couldn't help but curse. How could there be such a foolish ally? The terrain of the building behind is even lower than this bunker. What should I do if you run in? What firepower will you use to cover me? Wait for you to find the stairs to the second floor. But the situation was stronger than the person, and he couldn't possibly drag the person back, so he had to change his position and look outward again. A large number of enemies stopped about 100 meters away, with at least 40 to 50 people. Platoon-level combat, without heavy firepower, Chen Chen breathed a slight sigh of relief. If there is a heavy machine gun on the other side, it would be wiser for him to surrender directly. Having identified the two advancing enemy forces, Chen Chen once again pointed his head and fired a single shot. From a distance of less than 50 meters, it could be said that he was hitting wherever he went, and the advancing enemy immediately leaned back. But the two were too far apart horizontally. While Chen Chen turned his gun, another person, including other enemy forces inside the bunker, had already opened fire. We cannot be discouraged. Counseling is death. Chen Chen calmly pulled the trigger, and the second person fell to the ground in response. The bullet on the opposite side hit the sandbag in the bunker with a thump, but to Chen Chen's surprise, even the nearest bullet was still more than 1 meter away from him. Are you joking? Is the monkey holding the gun across from you? Suddenly, he was no longer afraid. If you want his mother fire cover, it's over. It turns out that I am the clown, and it turns out that the friendly army has gained experience. Chen Chen pulled out 2 grenades from the body underneath him, and upon taking them out, it turned out to be with wooden handles. This thing retro style. Fortunately, the bottom cover had already been unscrewed, so he grabbed the fire rope at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and threw it out immediately after smoking. Later, before the grenade exploded, he dug out of cover and ran straight towards the building behind him. At this point, the friendly forces finally came in handy, either hiding behind load-bearing pillars or lying on the ground, with their guns pointing towards slightly higher bunkers, to guard against incoming enemies. Chen Chen can't help but want to roast again. Hit low and lie high, are you fucking crazy? Squat. Squat shooting. He shouted and charged towards the building in a snake-like manner, but before he could approach, the friendly forces in front of him opened fire. You're XXX, we're all in your shooting world. No one listened to him, so he had to slip on the spot, suddenly turn over, spread his legs apart and fire in a prone position. 2 shots and 1, the enemy who crossed the bunker fell to the ground without even raising their guns. Ignoring the surprised gaze of the captain beside him, he flipped over again, took a few steps over the friendly army still lying on the ground, and rushed into the interior of the first floor of the building. What are you waiting for? Come on in. Chen Chen is almost speechless about the military quality of this group of friendly troops. In front of the building is a large open area, and the cover has also been completed. He hasn't retreated yet, is he waiting for a banquet? Upon hearing his shout, several soldiers who had stayed outside woke up from a dream and stumbled into the room. The captain issued the order quickly, and Chen Chen rushed over and dragged him to a corner far away from the window, shouting in his ear. Where the hell is this? The captain was confused. He looked at Chen Chen and answered a different question. Reinforcements. Reinforcements can't come. No, we're being tricked. The reinforcements won't even come. We're just cannon fodder. Chapter 2. CQB Tactics. You are listening at novel full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Chen Chen, a retired member of a certain brigade, a veteran barbecue shareholder, aged 35, married but childless, returned to 18 and traveled across northern Myanmar. After retreating into the building, with the captain's incoherent narration and the gradual fusion of memories in his mind, Chen Chen finally figured out his own situation. Now he is indeed not in that country, and the people around him are not that army. So here comes the question. In this world, where is the army most like them, but not them? It's bold to say that Tonzon's Pol was killed. It's Wa State. That's right, this is the legendary northern part of Myanmar, and the people around him are the Guogan Alliance Army. Of course, the year is 2009, and the Burmese government army is on the opposite side. Wow, I actually caught up with the starting point of the chaos in northern Myanmar. Moreover, what's even more unfortunate is that I am not only a member of the Guogan Alliance, but also one of those who were thrown to the front line. Even worse, not only was he thrown to the front line, but he still fought alongside the 812 ND Division. Pinch it, if the 812 ND Division comes to support, there will be ghosts. That's Bai's personal soldier. They wish that the group of allied soldiers who followed the Peng family's voice around them would die soon. Isn't it okay to call Wu Sangui in northern Myanmar for free? The captain was still chattering away nonsense like, there won't be any support, and, they won't come. Chen Chen took a deep breath and rushed forward with a slap. Pop. The crisp slap even drowned out the gunshots outside, and the captain. Or perhaps the platoon leader. Stood still, finally giving Chen Chen a chance to speak. Stop talking nonsense, pull the people back, retreat to the south side of the building, go upstairs, and spread the defense. They don't have heavy weapons, play CQB with them. What are you fighting for? The platoon leader was stunned for 2 seconds, then shouted loudly like an emotional outburst. What else are you fighting? No one will come. We only have a dozen or so left after the 40 or so of us fought. Run, run for your life. You killed people, you're amazing. Can you kill them all? Across from them is the Burmese army. They are trained Burmese soldiers. How do you fight? Tell me how to fight. I'm telling you now. Chen Chen took a deep breath. The closer it is to a desperate situation, the more calm he becomes. I said, play CQB, play indoors with them. I'll say it again, they don't have heavy weapons. Chen Chen's voice also grew louder, and this voice finally brought the platoon leader back to his senses. He looked at Chen Chen in a daze, as if he were looking at a stranger. From now on, I will take command. Without further ado, Chen Chen directly stripped the company commander of his command. He had just proven himself with a 7.0 record, even if he didn't see anything outside the cover, it was still 5.0. So, none of the surviving allies opposed it. They actually know very well that running is absolutely impossible. The Burmese army has no legs or something. I can only stand by and wait for help, and if I want to survive, it's best to listen to the person who killed the most enemies. Everyone go upstairs, hurry. Chen Chen stopped talking nonsense and rushed out of the north room ahead of him. At this moment, he realized that this place was actually a teaching building. More advantageous. The classroom has a large space and reduces explosive damage, but the density of cover remains the same. In CQB combat, it can almost be said to be the best home ground for the defending team. Running along the corridor for more than 10 meters, the only staircase appeared in front of us. The friendly army following behind us kept moving upwards, but in the end, the two were caught by Chen Chen. You guard the entrance of the stairs, go to the opposite classroom, open the door, and shoot if anyone comes. You go upstairs, go up the stairs to the corner, wait for the classroom to shoot, then shoot from the corner railing. Yes, just squat here. Chen Chen quickly deployed a crossfire, and the two people who were stopped hesitated for a moment before finally occupying the battle position according to Chen Chen's arrangement. Looking at the young man entering the classroom across the stairs, Chen Chen's mood was mixed. He's not a firepower point, he's just a bait. In fact, the person at the corner of the stairs is also a bait. Chen Chen knows their combat skills and knows that they can only be treated as consumables are used. Chen Chen will accompany them, and they will attract the first wave of firepower for Chen Chen. After they fall, Chen Chen will continue to retreat to the next firepower point. Relying on his own marksmanship to block and kill anyone who dares to enter step by step. This is the last resort. In 3 minutes, Chen Chen completed the upper-level reconnaissance and arranged all the firepower points. At this moment, looking from the window, the enemy had crossed the initial line of defense and began to advance towards the building. They occasionally fired a few shots at the window, but of course they wouldn't encounter any counterattacks. All firepower points are kept away from windows, completely avoiding the risk of being caught between inside and outside. Under such an arrangement, even if the opponent actually pulled out a heavy machine gun, it would not be possible to cause effective killing. At the last moment, Chen Chen rushed towards the staircase on the first floor. He first glanced at the friendly soldier in the classroom, then squatted next to the soldier guarding the corner of the stairs and patted his shoulder, saying, "Don't be afraid, being afraid is death. Throw a grenade as soon as the gun rings, don't wait." Seeing the trembling soldier nod, Chen Chen slowly retreated to the first-floor platform and hid behind the wall in the stairwell, with his gun pointing in the same direction as the soldier. Subsequently, he unscrewed the back cover of 3 grenades. When the gun rings, as long as the Burmese army rushes forward, regardless of whether the friendly soldiers fall or not, these 3 grenades will be thrown out. It's cruel, but if no one dies, no one can live. At this point, the Burmese army had already rushed into the teaching building. Zhaozuiyuan.com They were shouting and shooting, and their combat skills were not much better than those of the allied forces around them. The sound grew closer and finally arrived at the staircase. Bang bang bang. A sudden gunshot rang out, followed by fierce counterattacks and dense curses, mixed with the burning sound of pulling the fire rope, the crisp sound of grenades landing, the clanking sound of stray bullets hitting the railing, and the angry roar of the soldiers. Chaos began, chaos ended again, because the grenade exploded. The shock wave of the indoor explosion briefly closed everyone's hearing. The Burmese army, who were firing at the classroom, ignored the firepower at the staircase entrance. The soldier forgot Chen Chen's command and rushed to the platform at the corner of the first staircase, aiming to fire wildly below. After a magazine was fired, the soldier excitedly shouted at Chen Chen who had just walked down the stairs. "Beat it to death. I beat it to death. Defeat." Before he could finish speaking, a series of bullets pierced through his body. And Chen Chen, who was hiding on the stairs, fired from the gap between the 2 stairs and took away the 2 enemies who had killed the soldiers. Subsequently, without any hesitation, Chen Chen pulled the rope and dropped a grenade. He patiently waited for the grenade to explode, and after the explosion, the enemy reorganized their charge and threw another grenade up the stairs. But this one doesn't pull fire. The enemy instinctively turned around and fled, while Chen Chen calmly pulled out the last grenade, silently counting the numbers and rushed to the corner of the stairs, throwing it towards the wall in the first-floor staircase. A perfect food bank, cue ball. No, the grenade bounced towards the first-floor corridor. There are at least 5 enemies crowded there. Air explosion. Chapter 3. Total annihilation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. When Chen Chen used to practice CQB, he often said to his teammates, "Your corner skills are too poor." But now, he has truly seen what it means to have poor corner skills. No, it's not bad, it's not at all. A stairwell, a crossfire, 5 grenades, harvested at least 11 lives. The Burmese army platoon, which had defeated the company it was in, had lost more than a quarter. The result of such a battle made Chen Chen feel a bit dazed, and he even began to doubt whether his arrangements were necessary. If your opponent is like this, why don't you think about dying? Find a hallway to squat down and use 3-stage hitting techniques. The other side may even queue up to die, right, but looking back, he definitely wouldn't do it that way. After the brief firefight in the stairwell ended, he immediately rushed to the third floor. That's right, the second floor is empty, it's a psychological tactic. Having just experienced the devastating casualties on the first floor, they were given an empty city plan on the second floor. When they searched for the third floor, their focus and vigilance that had just been raised were partially worn away. At this time, taking action often resulted in fruitful results. War is about calculating every penny, and CQB is even more so. But on the third floor, the firepower point designed by Chen Chen is different from that on the first floor. There was no one on the stairs, and there was no one in the classroom facing the stairs. The only defensive measure was a lightning bolt. Their real nightmare is when the enemy enters the corridor sandwiched between the left and right classrooms. Two people in a classroom, cross-firing diagonally. After they fire, the other two people behind the 3 bookshelves that have been pushed down at the end of the corridor will fire at the same time. Next, the last 2 people arranged upstairs will rush down and harvest from behind the enemy. Of course, Chen Chen was among the 2 harvesters. He is definitely not greedy for life and afraid of death, because the position he has chosen is actually the most dangerous. There are many natural shelters in the classroom, with a wide range of our own shooting range and a narrow range of enemy shooting. The firepower point at the end of the corridor is blocked by books. Yes, stacked books can withstand 7.62 mm bullets. Knowledge is power, only the 2 people who take the back path on the stairs have no cover, and the only thing they can do is one thing. Use the fastest and most ferocious firepower to bring down all the enemies in front of you. Either the enemy dies or oneself dies. Chen Chen's heart was beating violently, not because of nervousness, but because of the crazy secretion of adrenaline. The platoon leader on the side finally regained some instinct as a warrior. Although he was trembling all over, he still squatted firmly beside Chen Chen, with no intention of running away. Don't be nervous, relax. After the first round, they need to slow down for at least a few minutes before they can attack. I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous. The platoon leader is giving himself psychological cues. Very useful psychological cues. His hands slowly stabilized and his breathing slowed down. 5 minutes later, a faint sound of footsteps came from downstairs. This time, the enemy was no longer foolish enough to fire, but their voices were still a bit too loud. A few seconds later, the sound of a grenade exploding echoed downstairs, causing the platoon leader's body to tremble. Chen Chen pressed down on his shoulder. Wait a little longer. Next, there was an explosion every few seconds, and the entire building was trembling. However, to Chen Chen's surprise, the 6 people downstairs actually listened to him and did not shoot. Curses and curses began to appear, and the enemy began to relax their vigilance. The sound of footsteps getting closer and closer, they began to climb up the 3rd floor. It's normal for the thunder to not make a sound. The sound of the grenade explosion also stopped. This building has a total of 6 floors, and they probably want to save some time and keep cleaning the upper floors. After all, there's no one on the 2nd floor, how could there be anyone on the 3rd floor? Shouldn't they all hide on the 6th floor or on the rooftop? That narrow exit is the most suitable for ambush. The enemy probably thought this way, so they immediately started paying for their mistakes after entering the corridor. The dense gunfire rang out, and there was no ammunition management at all. Without hesitation, Chen Chen rushed towards the stairs at the first time. The Bai bar has a capacity of 30 rounds, and our team doesn't even have a light machine gun. The firepower of the friendly troops downstairs can last up to 10 seconds. He only has 10 seconds. Go downstairs, appear, shoot, and dig your butt. Chen Chen first cleared the 3 people who had retreated to the stairwell. After a long shot, he threw down the only 86-style handless grenade in his hand, which was the only one in the team. Later, he dashed into the classroom across the corridor, avoiding the range of fragments, and then peeked out at the moment when the friendly forces stopped fire and exchanged ammunition behind the bookshelf cover. Fully automatic, fire at full force. After the bullets are fired, throw the gun and replace it with another gun that was previously found on the soldier's body. In just 10 seconds, the corridor had been filled with corpses. At least 15 corpses. Don't stop, come charging with me. Chen Chen shouted loudly. The survivor at the end of the corridor ran over first, and the last person in the classroom who survived the dense explosion of enemy grenades also followed in confusion. The Burmese army downstairs has begun to retreat, but Chen Chen still adheres to the basic principles of CQB. Therefore, when he rushed outside the door, he only saw the back of the Burmese army fleeing towards the direction of cover. Don't miss any of them. He shouted again. The gunshots around him rang out, and Chen Chen calmly shot. His thoughts even began to drift. Is it considered elite for an army to start fleeing after a certain number of casualties? This Burmese army platoon is considered elite, as it only began to flee after being half dead. What about the row you are in? Died 3 quarters and dealt a 6.30 damage in the battle. Well, the elite among the elite. After dark, the first support army finally arrived at Zhaozuiyuan.com. Ming Xuechang, the trusted general under Bai Suocheng, personally led a team to collect the corpses. He knew that in this battle, there was no way anyone from the Allied forces could survive. Because he leaked the intelligence to the Burmese mountain troops, he personally planned the encirclement, and also issued the order, no support is allowed if the situation is unknown. He certainly regretted the sacrifices of those good boys, but who made them join the wrong team? There is no other way, military affairs will ultimately fail with integrity. Trade your lives for a bright future, rest in peace. Ming Xuechang took a deep breath and 2 tears squeezed out of his eyes. Are they trapped in this building? Did anyone survive? I don't know, we just arrived and didn't have a chance to see it, but it shouldn't have happened. The Burmese army has all withdrawn, so it's probably over. Okay. Ming Xuechang paused for a moment before continuing. We should treat their families well and not be greedy for subsidies. We must be good people in this matter, and the responsibility should be shifted to the Peng family. Also, there should be some corpses on the Myanmar side, these are all outside. Our soldiers are really good, they can still kill so many enemies. But you should arrange for someone to personally deliver the Burmese body back. As he spoke, Ming Xuechang strode into the building. The private soldiers around were shining flashlights, illuminating the lobby of the teaching building. Then, Ming Xuechang stood still. A corpse in one place. Behind the corpse, there were several people squatting, standing, or sitting. And their eyes, it's like trying to eat people. Chapter 4. Runaway. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Chen Chen, the tattered Allied army, can't stay any longer for a day. After returning from the battlefield, they were treated like heroes, and Bai Suocheng even personally came forward to commend the company commander. But discerning people can all see that this so-called commendation is simply perfunctory. Winning a battle without promotion or receiving money, verbally praising a few words, and not even holding a celebration, is this commendation. This clearly means blocking the message. What's more serious is that Chen Chen and his company have not yet added new players, nor have they had the intention of being integrated into other companies. Just throw you towards the barracks, consuming you, while also arranging other troops to watch. The Allied forces who have not read history and do not know a few big characters may not understand what this means, but Chen Chen has a clear understanding. This is about getting rid of the burden and killing the donkey. The reason why they didn't take action is just because they haven't figured out how to kill the donkey yet. Should I deliver it to the butcher or kill it myself? If you kill yourself, do you want to kill it with a single blow, or do you want to find a way to slowly bleed? This is not an easy decision to make, and the benefits must be well distributed. Chen Chen knew that this was his only opportunity, and if he couldn't seize this opportunity to escape, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to leave. So, on a lax night, he quietly gathered all 4 survivors together. At this point, he already knew that the company commander's surname was Shi and his name was Shi. Of course, he had nothing to do with the prestigious Shi. On the contrary, among the soldiers Chen Chen had dealt with, Shi was considered a rather cowardly and foolish type. When he stood in front of Shi and suggested running with his brothers, Shi's reaction was a look of fear. Why do you want to run? Why do you think you want to run? Are you going to rebel? I assume you haven't said this before, don't say it again in the future. This must be an accident. The officer won't joke about our lives casually. Hasn't he already explained it to us? You have excellent marksmanship and will definitely make a name for yourself in the future. Isn't General Bai praising you this time? If it weren't for the tense situation, he would definitely have commended you. Don't worry, wait a little longer. Chen Chen rolled his eyes and did not blame the ignorance of Wei Shi. What are you waiting for? What's the situation now? Don't you really have any points in your heart? We've been abandoned long ago. We've already been abandoned. Do you know how much trouble this will bring to the upper echelons, as those who should have died are now alive? No, we're all battle heroes. How could they? Captain, it's not us, it's Chen Chen. Someone interrupted Shirdakai's words on the side. That's right, without him, we wouldn't be able to survive. The Burmese army is rushing to kill them all, and this thing itself is not right. Do you really think it's your fault? Bai. General Bai just chose you to push out. The credit should be Chen Chen. Chen Chen, I'll come with you. I'll go too. Captain, let's go. If Chen Chen can save us, he will definitely not harm us. Except for Shidakai and Chen Chen, the other 2 members of the 4-person team had already been impressed by Chen Chen. Not only because of his far superior marksmanship compared to the average level of the Allied forces, but also because of his calm, quick-witted, and military qualities that were definitely not part of this land, as demonstrated in his death. They even discussed privately and felt that with Chen Chen's abilities, not only the company commander but also the brigade commander were enough. So, they have no intention of questioning Chen Chen's decision at all. Other people expressed their opinions one after another, and Shidakai became visibly panicked. He tried to persuade a few more words, but found that no one cared about his opinion. So he had to resort to his last move. Think about your family. What would they do if you ran away? For a moment, everyone froze in place. Yes, except for Chen Chen, all 4 of them have family and parents. If they become deserters, it can be imagined that Bai Suocheng will definitely retaliate against their family. This seems to be a dilemma, at least in many movies, it is pushed as the core of contradictions. But in Chen Chen's opinion, it's not. He said calmly. Staying here is to exchange your own life for your family's life, to die and suffer losses. Run out, if he really dares to retaliate, then we'll find an opportunity to fight back, repay the debt with blood, don't lose or make a profit. If they dare not retaliate, then we have made a profit. Choose, stay with those who don't want to leave. I won't tell you where I'm going, so don't report without thinking. Now, vote. As the words fell, the other 2 immediately raised their hands. Chen Chen is right. If he leaves, he will at least have a chance to seek revenge. If he stays here, he will die in vain. He must leave. Moreover, my dad is not easy to provoke, and if we want to retaliate against him, we will at least have to pay a few damages. That's right, I can't handle that much either. I have to leave first and then find a way to pick them up. The consensus was unanimous, leaving only Shirdakai. Chen Chen looked at him and spoke. You have no choice. Shirdakai sighed and replied. You guys go. I won't say anything, I'll just ignore it. Chen Chen shook his head. No, the conditions I just mentioned are not specific to you. I can trust them, but I can't trust you. We've all left, just leave a word for you. If you don't leave, you'll die. Chen Chen's heart is as cold as a fish-killing knife, and he will never let Shirdakai, the surrendering element, go out of his sight. Yes, what he is saying now may be true. But what about after I leave? How many hours can he carry it? Maybe he leaked the secret before even running out of the military camp. Shirdakai looked at Chen Chen in shock and finally nodded. Then let's go. The plan was formulated, and the next night, 4 people passed through most of the campsite and stole the weapons they needed from the gun depot. Because they were in a state of war with the Burmese army at this time, gun and weapon management had been relaxed by more than one level, so their actions faced little resistance. The process is like a children's play, where one person attracts the attention of the warehouse keeper, another knocks him unconscious from behind, and then sits in the warehouse keeper's seat before the patrol guard comes over. The guard asks and says that the warehouse keeper has gone to the restroom and will be back soon. The key is that this is really the best reason, because the warehouse manager would really do this dare, allied army, with such qualities, who will lose if you don't lose. Chen Chen didn't have time to marvel. He was surprised to find that there were 2 brand new SVDs in this shabby arsenal. That's right, it's SVD, not a replica of the 79 sniper. The original SVD has much higher accuracy compared to the 79 sniper, mainly because it uses specialized 7N1 and 7N14 bullets. Although they are both 7.62mm bullets, compared to ordinary AR bullets, these bullets can significantly reduce the shooting dispersion of SVD. Chen Chen doesn't know who these 2 guns belong to, and why they appeared here, but there is no doubt that they will definitely go smoothly. Although he couldn't find a dedicated spare ammunition on site, he felt that he shouldn't have too many opportunities for ultra-long-range sniping. Most battles are limited to a few hundred meters, so using regular AR bullets is enough. Nowadays, in northern Myanmar, whether it is the Type 53, Type 58, or PKM, they are all very common. It is not difficult to find some AR rounds and there is no need to worry about insufficient ammunition. After dismantling it and quickly assembling it on his back, Chen Chen rummaged through the boxes and cabinets, but unfortunately, he couldn't find the special ammunition. Zhaozhuyuan.com. However, we cannot demand more. In 10 minutes, everyone's backpacks were already filled with ammunition, grenades, and they also brought a few sets of brand new individual communication systems. Throat microphone. It's also a good product. Looking at the Russian text above, Chen Chen knows where the 2 SVDs come from. Have you finished all of them? Done. Others answered in a low voice. Then let's go. Helping the warehouse keeper to his seat and lying down, the group evacuated along the same route and arrived at the center of the camp. Taking advantage of the gap between the change of guards, they escaped from the military camp without any danger. The military camps of the Allied forces were not originally under closed management. A considerable number of soldiers had to farm, sell small commodities, and mine mines when they were not in battle. How can closed management be implemented? So, even though Bai Suocheng specifically instructed for strict supervision, it was really no difficulty for Chen Chen, an old special operations expert in infiltration and reverse osmosis. Half an hour later, they had already run 2 kilometers in the forest, and the military camp behind them finally became chaotic. The sound of alarms, gunshots, and roars echoed wildly, and the lights took off. Shirdakai followed Chen Chen anxiously and asked, "Discovered?" Where are we going now? What are we doing? Chen Chen sighed. What can we do? We have no capital or status, and it's impossible for us to cross the border to China. I can't do anything, but at least I need to run out first. After a brief pause, he continued. However, at least we still have guns. Let's go to Shan State first, go to Mengka, and we'll become mercenaries. Chapter 5. Mercenaries of Mengka. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Mengka is not a small village. In fact, Mengka is an important city and stronghold in the Shan State Special Administrative Region. It is located at the border of Shan State and Hua State, with Mengbao to the north, Mengyang to the east, and Jingdong to the south. Jingdong is the last checkpoint for northern Myanmar to enter the core area of the Golden Triangle. Mengyang belongs to the jurisdiction of the 468th Brigade of Hua State and is the territory of Liaishu. Mengbao belongs to the 418th Brigade, which has 917 squadrons and is the core defensive force of Bangkok. The brigade commander is Bao Yongjin, a confidant of Commander Bao. Jingdong is under the control of the Burmese ZF Army, but their infiltration range is not limited to Jingdong alone. All surrounding areas have their combat battalions and special operations forces deployed, and they even established permanent military camps near Mengka. As for Mengka itself, it belongs to the jurisdiction of the 7th Brigade of Northern Shan State, but not only to the Shan State Alliance Army, as it is also within the influence of the Northern Mofuman Corps. To put it simply, this is a four battleground, but precisely because of its unique geographical location, it has achieved a subtle balance among various forces and become a key transit point for freight and people transportation in the entire northern Myanmar region. As is well known, as long as it is a hub area, it will definitely be chaotic. Not to mention, what is being transported here are all illegal items that cannot be left on paper. So, although Mengka is not as infamous for its electric fraud as Mayawati and Guagan in later generations, its level of chaos beneath the calm water surface is definitely incomparable to other places. But Chen Chen is not afraid of chaos, because chaos is their best cover. After spending a full 3 days, crossing a straight distance of 200 kilometers and transferring to various modes of transportation, Chen Chen finally arrived at Mengka with his 3 teammates. They took off their brave military uniforms, changed into T-shirts and pants prepared on the way, wrapped the overly conspicuous SVD in cloth, carried 81 bars that matched their identity, and checked into an inconspicuous hotel. 2 rooms, one for 2 people, happened to take turns guarding. He hid both temporarily and used SVDs and excess equipment under the bed. Which certainly cannot be considered completely safe, but there is currently no better way. Fortunately, the Northern Shan State Army has strong military control in Mengka, with security teams patrolling everywhere, and almost all hotels are owned by the Military Control Committee, so there is no need to worry too much about being stolen or robbed. As for being discovered by room service personnel, don't talk anymore. A rundown hotel with 50 RMB per night doesn't have this kind of thing. After everything was settled, Chen Chen gathered everyone in his room for a meeting. After several days of running around, Chen Chen has also gained a basic understanding of others. Apart from Shirdukai, there are 2 other comrades in arms named Li Bang and Bao Chi. Li Bang is a short black-skinned man who has just turned 20 this year. Like Chen Chen, he joined the Guagan alliance just for a meal. However, Bao Chi respected his father's wishes. In 1984, his father had worked with Bao Yoxiang on the National Democratic Front. He always felt that Guagan and the Hua State were just siblings and hoped that one day they could rebuild the glory of northern Myanmar. Therefore, his attitude towards his son's enlistment in the military was very firm. This background has also created a gap in military quality between Li Bang and Bao Chi. If Li Bang is really a little better than a monkey who can shoot, and he survived entirely by luck, then Bao Chi at least has some skills. At least when the other party is gathering fire and shooting in unison, he knows how to lie down and find cover to hide. Are we really going to be mercenaries? Before Chen Chen could speak, Kai asked first. He has always harbored doubts about the issue of mercenaries, thinking that those people are useless thugs. But Chen Chen doesn't think so. It seems that if you dare to speak, the Alliance Army is not a mercenary without formal military training, earning wages at work, and being able to shoot and throw them onto the battlefield. Isn't this the lowest level of cannon fodder mercenaries? Rather than fighting them, it's better to fight a wealthy boss. If one can make a name for themselves and earn enough money and establish a good identity in the future, they will have the opportunity to completely get rid of this chaotic northern Myanmar and return to their true homeland. So, he firmly replied. Yes, I'm going. There must be a way to go. Shall we just run down the street and ask? Moreover, they may not necessarily want us, we are all ready. Kai didn't finish his words, but everyone understood that what he was trying to say was, we wouldn't have fought in the first place. Chen Chen sighed and explained. It doesn't matter if there will be a war or not. There are gun groups of all sizes everywhere in Mengka. As long as you have guns, it's not difficult to make a living with them. Moreover, fighting here may not necessarily be more dangerous than daring, at least we can choose our own tasks. Can you still choose by yourself? Kai was greatly surprised. Sure, some large gun groups here have a lot of resources, and they will receive various tasks. Some tasks are not cost-effective for them, so they will be subcontracted to smaller gun groups. For example, Mugui, do you know? The largest gun regiment in Mengka, mainly composed of the former Kuncha Mongol Thai army, was dispersed by the Wa state and fled from the Dudwan River to establish the Mugui gun regiment. In recent years, Mugui has developed very well, connecting the military of northern Shan state and gradually transitioning from a mercenary group to a PMC. He is now known as Wanfeng Group and mainly engages in security and freight business, so they don't do many small tasks. This is our opportunity. As long as we can pass their assessment, take 1 or 2 tasks, and survive, we can stand firm in Mengka. Upon hearing his words, Li Bang and Bao Qi nodded together. I think it's feasible. I also think it's feasible. Winning a battle and earning some money is at least better than the Allied forces. Their minds were simple, and when they heard Chen Chen say it was profitable, they stopped thinking too much. But Kai is different. Although he is cowardly and sometimes foolish, he is definitely not stupid. He looked at Chen Chen with scrutinizing eyes and tentatively asked. How did you know about these things? How did I know? Chen Chen sighed. I can't tell you, these messages were accidentally seen from intelligence when I participated in the 4-nation joint operation in my previous life, right? Kai clearly doesn't need to know these things. So, Chen Chen simply replied. Go online more, read more news, then there's everything on it. Kai opened his mouth wide. Ah. Watch news online. Maybe we should give it a try. After dispelling the doubts of several people, Chen Chen was also unwilling to waste more time. After all, they don't have much money left in their hands, and the 4 of them add up to just over 6,000 renminbi, which really won't last long. We need to quickly change the money. Don't say so much, let's go to Mugui later and talk to their people first. Maybe we're lucky enough to go today and receive the task today. Chapter 6. Only accepting rewards. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the entrance of Mugui was better than Chen Chen had imagined, because Mugui's headquarters itself was a large casino, Wanfeng Casino. Upon entering, there was the individual guest hall, where a large crowd of people crowded together to gamble and play anything. This kind of scene has long been common in Guagan, and there is not a single person in the 4-person team who is interested, not even the mud code that the stacked code boy voluntarily handed over has been picked up by anyone. Chen Chen was very satisfied with the performance of the 3 of them. In fact, at that moment, he even thought that if anyone showed interest in gambling, he would have to find an excuse to kick them out. On the one hand, of course, it is because of the three bottom lines of pornography, gambling, and drugs. On the other hand, it is because he always feels that life is already a super large casino, and the luck he has finally accumulated will still be used in small casinos. What is the difference between that and mental retardation? Chen, where are we going to find the task? Bao Qi approached Chen Chen and asked in a low voice. Looking at his serious expression, Chen Chen couldn't help but want to laugh. Since leaving the house, Bao Qi and Li Gang have been acting like actors, imitating the bodyguards and attendants of the big shot in the movie, making him a bit uncomfortable. However, on the other hand, the two of them had just seen blood on the battlefield with themselves, and their temperament was different from that station. At first glance, they looked quite similar. Anyway, it's definitely not on the first floor. Go to the VIP lounge on the second floor and ask. Chen Chen spoke up and answered. Just go straight like this? Ga asked hesitantly. When opening the door for business, we can't help but let people ask. Although it's okay with us, we didn't provoke anyone. It's okay to ask more questions. Chen Chen, with a carefree demeanor, walked through the gambling table with 4 people, ignoring the white eyes of the stacked players and went straight up to the second floor. He politely greeted the security guard and explained his purpose. The security guard took out the walkie-talkie and went to the front desk to verify their identity. They carefully inquired about the weapons that the 4 people had stored at the front desk before finally nodding and leading them into the office of the person in charge of task subcontracting. It was very smooth. It should have been so smooth too. The person in charge was a chubby man with a simple and honest appearance. He didn't say much when he saw Chen Chen and the others come in, so he immediately stood up and greeted them with a smile. Welcome, welcome. The officer was brought in by himself, right? He worked with us before. The fat man spoke up and asked. This sentence can be considered a probe and also a demonstration. His intention is very obvious, it is to tell Chen Chen that I have been watching you since you entered the door, don't try to play tricks with me. I used to hear the old leader say that things were going on in Dakli's area, but when the old leader left a while ago, we had to do it ourselves. Coming over today is also presumptuous. I hope the boss can give me a bite to eat. Faced with the attitude of the chubby man hiding a knife in his smile, Chen Chen's tone was calm, his demeanor was neither humble nor overbearing, and he could tell lies without hesitation, which made Bao Qi secretly sigh in his heart. What does it mean, sir? This is what you call the chief. Compared to being able to fight and do things, Ga is really never mind, after all, he is a platoon leader and cannot complain too much. He was still sighing, but the chubby guy had already started asking. Which team leader is it? If familiar, we can all discuss and let you take action on your own. But if you're not familiar with it, then you'll have to go to the shooting range to test the gun first and do it with our brothers. Be cautious and professional. The meaning of fatty is very clear, which means that if it is an experienced team of acquaintances, he can directly subcontract the task and let Chen Chen do it himself. If you are not well known, go to the shooting range to try your luck. If you can pass the assessment, join the Mugui's own gun team. If you can't pass, then the mountain is high and the road is far. Goodbye in the martial arts world. But the problem is that Chen Chen's team neither has the reputation to directly take on tasks nor the strength to pass assessments. To tell a joke, the assessment requirements for mercenaries in northern Myanmar are much higher than those of various armed regular armies. Even if one can pass it on their own, others cannot. It's very uncomfortable. Chen Chen frowned and wanted to find a reason to scare the fat man, but hesitated for a moment before deciding to be honest. He casually gave a name and answered, it's Chao Ying's army, it's long gone and probably won't have much cooperation with the boss. I understand what you mean, but if you join the Mugui directly. It's not our intention. So we want to ask, Are there any tasks that have no consequences and can be assigned to teams like us? We are not afraid of death, even if we seek wealth and prosperity insurance, we just want to take the last chance. Speaking of this, Chen Chen basically gave the fat man an explanation. The so-called task without consequences means that employers can try and make mistakes without considering the success or failure of the task. Regardless of the process, whether it is completed or not will result in death. Once it is completed, money will be given. Then you can only make a bounty list. The chubby man's expression remained unchanged, perfectly demonstrating the professionalism of Wanfeng Group in the transformation process, and also reflecting the basic qualities and manners that a service personnel should possess. What are the bounty lists? Chen Chen continued to ask. That's enough. The chubby man sat back on the sofa and said, as he spoke, the deaths of Li Aishu, Bao Yongxiang, Ping Jiasheng, Bai Sucheng. Mofa Wancheng Mountain Camp, Myanmar Army Mengka Camp, Hua State Mengping Camp. These places sweeping orders. The routing list for Daoyuo, Bada Brown, Samianpo, Nangu. They have been hanging for 2 or 3 years, and no one has taken them down yet. These are all public bounties. If you want them, I can give you a list directly. Do you need it? Chen Chen fell silent directly. What kind of tasks are these? No wonder it's a public bounty. Assassination of Bao Yongxiang and Ping Jiasheng. Take down the next military camp. Relatively speaking, the simplest routing tasks are for several locations, but the problem is that those points are all key border control points, and if they can be connected, there will be ghosts, but it seems like now, they don't have any other choice either. This is the end of the matter. Let's take a look first. Could you please trouble the boss to make a list for us? No problem. With almost no pause, the fat man directly took out a few thin A4 papers nailed to everything from the drawer under the table. Chen Chen glanced over and found that he still had a box of the same material. It seems that this is not the first time he has encountered such a situation. Thank you very much. After thanking them, the 4 of them said goodbye and left. The chubby man walked to the door with dedication, but as he turned around, Chen Chen keenly noticed the hint of disdain on his face. Zhaoshuyuan.com. That's too normal. A mercenary group should be looked down upon before achieving results. After all, he doesn't know the past achievements of the 4 people on his side, and Chen Chen can never take the initiative to speak out. As he walked out of the gate of the Wanfeng Hotel, Chen Chen immediately opened the reward list given by the fat man. As Fatty said at the beginning, it's really all those tasks that are basically impossible to complete. The other 3 were all feeling a bit disappointed. Today was not smooth, which made them deeply feel that being a mercenary is not that easy. Don't say if you can do it, can't you even get the task? And Dukai has already directly started to persuade him to withdraw. Why don't we stop being mercenaries? Sell the gun and do some small business here, okay? I used to sell fruits and made quite a profit. In the future, if you have the capital, you can open a Myijia supermarket. Stop talking. Before Chen Chen could speak, Bao Qi interrupted Dukai first. What are you thinking? Have you forgotten that our family is still brave? Selling fruits, when can we bring them over? If they have an accident and don't become mercenaries, how can we avenge them? I already said not to come. Don't come, you'll die. Who knows? Stop talking. Chen Chen finally spoke up. What's so noisy? Come and take a look at this first. I found a bounty, the 4 of us, maybe we can really do it. Chapter 7. Heartless Cannon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the bounty that Chen Chen was interested in was actually not simple. There was also a reason why it was not accepted or chewed down by anyone. And the main reason is costs and benefits are disproportionate. This order is a sweep order with a bounty price of only $10,000, but its mission scale is quite large. Eliminate a group of armed militants or bandits from Mount Wanha. According to the intelligence provided along with the bounty, the total strength of the Wanha bandit stronghold is about 20 people, not belonging to any force, but a group of gunmen who were driven out by the Northern Shan State Army from the vicinity of Mengka and blocked by the Burmese army in Mengku camp. They temporarily make a living using very primitive methods of blocking, looting, and kidnapping, with their main customers being ordinary vehicles on the transportation lines of Wan Aitao and Dong Ta. Yes, they dare not take action against anyone with background, because that would really bring about murder. So, the ordinary villagers around are unlucky. They wanted to resist, but no matter how difficult it was, Wanha still had 20 guns and more than 20 people, making it almost impossible to shoot them down. As for seeking help from the military and major forces, stop talking, these bandits are not interfering with their affairs. Who is willing to take care of them? So they had to offer a bounty. As little as a pitiful $10,000. Perhaps they knew that the money was too little, so they also proposed an additional condition, which is: if we can eliminate the bandits in Wanha, Menglang Buddhist Temple will provide free relief for the victims with this condition. If someone goes to pick it up, there will be ghosts. Even for small groups like Chen Chen, theoretically speaking, if they really try to do something with Bao Yongxiang or Bai, the cost-effectiveness is higher than that of Wanha. At least they still have 2 SVDs. However, Chen Chen's approach is unique. He thinks he can do it when others think he can't. He first spent 10 yuan at the front desk to borrow a computer with internet access, found a nearby terrain map, and roughly copied it. Then, he returned to his room with the map and began mapping homework. Seeing the battlefield through the blueprint is an assessment that he had to pass in military topography classes in his previous life, so it seems that there is no difficulty at this time. In just a few minutes, he already had a basic understanding of the terrain and topography of the Wanha camp in his mind. However, of course, developing a combat plan is not that simple. Just as he was pondering, Shirdakai came to persuade him to retreat. Are we really going to fight against Wanha? Look at the intelligence on the bounty, there are quite a few of them. Moreover, we have never fought such a battle before. We only have a few guns and grenades in our hands, go and fight their stronghold. Why don't we just forget about it? Even if we want to become mercenaries, we still need to find a better mission and can't go and die. As soon as he spoke these words, even Li Bang and Bao Qi, who had always stood firmly on Chen Chen's side, hesitated a bit. After all, from the current situation, going to fight against Wanha Nai would be like dying. Brother Chen, what do you think? Can we fight? Bao Qi tentatively asked. If you can fight, you can definitely fight. Give me a synthetic brigade, not to mention Wanha, Bangkok can easily fight. The problem lies in the lack of firepower. What Chen Chen said is a very practical problem. The main reason why no one did this reward is that the reward limits the amount of firepower invested. If it's not $10,000, it's $100,000 or $1 million. Do you see anyone going to fight? Just pull a set of 107 fires and you'll be able to beat those bandits crazy. However, the export price of 107 rockets per round is 6,000 yuan, equivalent to 1,000 yuan, and when it comes to the hands of mercenary groups, it has to be doubled 5 times. A reward of $10,000 is enough to get 2 shots, what should we do then? Bao Qi asked with concern. Chen Chen finally lifted his head, and at this moment, he had a preliminary plan in his heart. There's a way. No matter what the other side says, there are only about 20 people at most. If we can cause a 30% reduction in the first wave of attack, which is a reduction of 6 or 7 people, we can directly disperse their morale, and the battlefield can easily turn into a one-sided harvest. To achieve this, we have 2 approaches. The first option is to enhance firepower. The second option is to improve tactics. Of course, improving tactics cannot solve all problems. Your level is too low to meet the requirements of special operations without long-term training. Moreover, we lack special operations equipment, and it is impossible to achieve a high casualty ratio in open terrain. So, we must prioritize using our brains to enhance firepower. But we don't have the money. Shirdakai immediately poured another bucket of cold water. Yeah, without money, where did you get the firepower? Some firepower is actually not as expensive as you think. Chen Chen knocked on the table and continued speaking. First and foremost, our requirements for firepower must meet 2 points. Firstly, the range should be far enough, at least 150 meters or more, because this is the farthest distance that the opponent can detect us with the naked eye in the jungle. Secondly, there must be a basic level of accuracy, and one cannot achieve nothing by randomly exploding. Thirdly, the destructive power must be strong. A campsite with 20 people and a central area covering a range of over 100 meters horizontally and vertically, it is basically impossible to deal damage by throwing hand grenades. So, based on these conditions, combined with our own budget, I think we can already exclude some options. Gun grenades don't work, their power is insufficient. If it's a rocket launcher, we can't afford it. If it's a military gun, we can't afford to rent it either. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, so to put it this way. There's only one solution left. No conscience cannon. No conscience cannon. The 3 people across from me were shocked. After all, it was taught by a teacher, and they have all heard of the reputation of Heartless cannons to some extent. However, due to the special historical background and geographical relationship, in 2009 in northern Myanmar, this kind of antique thing was indeed not used by anyone. Because most forces can easily obtain eliminated weapons from various sources, they have no motivation or need to study homemade weapons. Of course, the situation is different now. Chen Chen needs this cheap, useful, and unexpected thing. Looking at the expressions on the 3 of them, Chen Chen pondered for a moment before continuing. It's definitely not just a Heartless cannon, the accuracy and range of the projectile are not enough. So, let's first take out all the money and purchase some equipment. First, go to the market and see if you can find a 12-liter gas cylinder. Remember, you need the one with an outer diameter of 249 millimeters. If you have one, rent 4. It's for rent. It's not for purchase. Just say we need gas, and we'll pay back the cans later. If you can save some money, then save some. Then, you can go to the construction site in the north and see if there are cast iron drainage pipes with a specification of DN250. I remember when we arrived, they happened to be building a drainage system. In theory, DN250 pipes should be standard. Finally, let's find a repair shop and borrow their welding equipment. If all these things can be successfully completed, then we should have no problem winning this bounty. Chapter 8. Hell Cannon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Chen Chen is very confident in what he wants to do because he knows that if it can be used in the Middle East, it can be used in northern Myanmar. Gas canisters and cannons, the savior of guerrilla forces, once wielded the magical weapon of the U.S. Xinjiang helicopter. How did it become popular in the Middle East back then? It's simple, it's because one day, a certain armed militants who were troubled by insufficient firepower syndrome suddenly discovered that their gas tank happened to fit into the drainage pipe at his doorstep, which was blown open by American shells. And it's the kind that fits perfectly together. So, a genius idea was born. Why don't I just shoot out the gas cylinder and let it act as a large bomb? He immediately put his ideas into practice, but he soon realized that if only gas explosions were used, the power of the explosions would be too small. So he emptied the gas tank and filled it with the cheapest explosive he could find. ANFO. This kind of thing is a cheap explosive made from ammonium nitrate, XX, and XX. How cheap is it? C4 is cheap, the cost of 1 gram is only 1 yuan, but ANFO can achieve 2 yuan per kilogram. So, the best homemade weapons in the history of guerrilla warfare in the Middle East were born. Later, it underwent a series of evolutions, including the addition of a tail wing, the addition of a stabilizer bar, and the upgrading of its charge from an ANFO to a Judson-like explosive, TNT, and RDX. Its effective range can reach an astonishing 800 meters, and the scattering of the impact point does not exceed 100 meters. The highest recorded explosive yield of a gas tank shell can even be equivalent to 150 kilograms of TNT. Of course, Chen Chen did not need the first trial production of the cannon to reach this level, his requirements were only 2. Can fly out and explode. He is not worried about the power issue, he can make ANFO himself, and the raw materials can also be purchased in Mengka. As for propellants, although there is no nitrocellulose, they are simpler and can be replaced with black gunpowder. Mengka has plenty of them and they are also cheap. The only regret is that I was too hasty when searching for the Gundam arsenal before and couldn't find any explosives. Otherwise, ANFO mixed with some TNT or RDX could even produce cloud explosive effects due to different detonation speeds. Let's make do with it. Do not seek total destruction, only seek to take the lead. So, according to Chen Chen's plan, the 4-person group leader began the procurement action. Shirdaka found a pipe with an inner diameter of 250 and a wall of 12, which was even better than Chen Chen had initially anticipated. Li helped find the gas cylinder and ordered 6 at once. Bao Qi found a repair shop willing to take on the job, while Chen Chen personally bought black gunpowder from a fireworks workshop and ammonium nitrate from an agricultural supplies store. As for the other 2 raw materials for making ANFO, XX and XX, they are really everywhere and there is no need to put in any effort. Shirdaka was surprised to be able to buy ammonium nitrate. He didn't expect that Mengka actually had a shop for agricultural inputs. In fact, not to mention agricultural material stores, there are also 4 hospitals, 6 schools from kindergarten to high school, and 2 nursing homes here. In 3 days, everything was ready. Following Chen Chen's guidance, the repair shop customized the first gas tank cannon they needed. The gun barrel has no rifling, and the projectile has no tail wings. It is equipped with the simplest detachable wheeled gun mount, which is actually a common modification of a rural rooster truck. However, simplicity returns to simplicity, but in the first experiment pulled into the mountains, the effect was surprisingly good. By using the simplest fuse to ignite, the fixed barrel successfully threw the gas tank filled with mud and sand nearly 200 meters away, deviating from the target position by less than 30 meters. Enough to use. So, Chen Chen worked overtime and spent 2 more days finally producing enough ANFO explosives for 4 shells, and carefully filled them into the gas tank. For the sake of confidentiality, the entire process was completed in a small room in the hotel. The volatile gas made Chen Chen's eyes ache, but fortunately, the hotel has an electric fan that can be used as a temporary exhaust fan. Finally, when he turned off the electric fan, it meant that his first attempt had been successful. Looking at the 4 fully prepared shells, Bao Qi's eyes were almost filled with stars. Chen Chen, no, brother Chen, what exactly is sacred? I know how to fight, how to be a good person, and now I have added another skill, how to make cannons. 2 cannons with a total cost of 4,000 yuan. Isn't this kind of person the kind of guerrilla genius my father once said about? Damn it, even though I have read the Friends of Military and Civilian Talents, the Militia Training Manual, and even the Cold War version of 100,000 Whys, why haven't I learned such things? He secretly made up his mind to follow Chen Chen in the future. Chen Chen is definitely not something in the pool, he must do something big. Maybe in the future, the positions of those families will have to be changed like Bao Qi. Li Bang's heart was also filled with surprise, but due to his personality, he did not show it too clearly. But judging from his fondness for the 2 hell cannons, he was truly impressed. Among the 4, the only one without confidence is probably only Shirdaka left. Even after witnessing the firing effect of gas cannons, his heart was still filled with doubts. What if this thing doesn't work then? He asked anxiously. Even if it's useless, I didn't expect it to be useful. Chen Chen calmly replied. He is just trying his best to prepare, but not all hope is pinned on these two unstable cannons. Ah. It's okay if it's useless. Then we'll. Shirdaka widened his eyes, but before he could finish speaking, Chen Chen interrupted him directly. If it really doesn't work, we still have two options to find Shuyuan www.jiaoshuyuan.com. Firstly, just run away. Mengka definitely can't stay any longer, but we can still go and throw Mofa, or even run to Dakli's side. Secondly, using the second plan, continue to annihilate Wanha. Do you have a second plan? Bao Qi asked excitedly. Of course there is. How could someone only create one set of combat plans? I have created 6 sets of plans. 6 sets. Shirdaka was secretly shocked. Although he didn't know what these 6 plans were, suddenly, his originally nervous heart seemed to have settled on some. Can you provide more details? Chen Chen nodded slightly and replied. A more specific combat plan will be synchronized after we complete the investigation. The current plan is based on the preliminary information we have already obtained. To summarize, each plan corresponds to a keyword. Gas canisters and cannons, setting fire to mountains, continuous attacks with precision rifles, fishing law enforcement, waiting for rabbits, and strong attacks. So, can you roughly understand? The 3 of them pondered for a moment, but it was still Bao Qi who reacted first. I understand. They are all very good plans. After he finished speaking, even Shirdaka finally nodded. It's really good. But I think fishing law enforcement is safer. After all, we can catch them off guard. Why don't we use this method? Chen Chen rolled his eyes and said, if you go to be a fish, we'll use this. Shirdaka gave an awkward smile. Then forget it. Chapter 9. Investigation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the cannons were left in the miscellaneous warehouse of the repair shop, while the shells were still kept in the hotel where Chen Chen and his companions were temporarily staying. No one wanted to sleep with something that could explode themselves into dust at any time, so they had almost no rest. That night, after finding a place to calibrate their guns, they immediately set off for Mount Wanha and began their first on-site investigation. Wanha Nation is about 16 kilometers away from Mengka. When you go there, you can take a special trampoline to see off people, but when you come back, you can only walk or try your luck. However, the other 3 did not have any complaints about it, as they have traveled over 200 kilometers, which is not lacking. Let's just practice. When they arrived near Mount Wanha, it was 9 p.m. They got off and walked 2 kilometers away from the opposite mountain. Then, according to the map, they climbed Mount Wankang, located about 600 meters west of Mount Wanha. The altitude of this mountain is higher than that of Mount Wanha, which can be used to confirm the specific location of the Wanha bandit camp. After climbing the tallest tree and using the PSO.1 sight on SVD to see the direction of the flames in the forest, the 4 of them began to traverse through the jungle. Chen Chen was very cautious. After entering the jungle, he immediately emphasized the most basic anti-tracking rules to the other 3 people. What can bend won't break, what can be crossed won't step, and what doesn't need to move won't move. If you step on damp ground, immediately apply it with your feet and remove it from the soft ground, but do not make any unnecessary cover-up movements, understand? Understood. The low answers of the other 3 people came from the earphones, and their voices were very clear. The throat microphone is easy to use, and the Russian domestic product is easy to use. It was stolen from the gun warehouse in vain. As he advanced all the way to a distance of less than 300 meters from the flames, Chen Chen's footsteps slowed down. If the other party wants to set up a secret whistle, this is the most likely range to appear. However, it is obvious that the living environment for the bandits in the Wanha camp is too relaxed. They usually bully honest villagers and have never faced attacks from armed forces. In terms of camp safety, they have done much worse than the Allied forces. As they advanced to 150 meters, the group of 4 did not encounter any obstacles, and by this time, they could already see the full picture of the bandit stronghold. A typical jungle settlement, the buildings are all wooden structures, arranged in a circular pattern, with a square in the middle for residents to move around. There are 3 defensive measures. The first one is the wooden fence surrounding the campsite, which is over 2 meters high but obviously not very sturdy. The second one is that there are 2 towers in the southwest and northwest corners of the campsite, each with light machine gun firepower points on top. They should be used as observation posts in normal times, with a view covering the road below the Wanha campsite. The third one, traps and thunder stirring. Chen Chen didn't actually see any obvious features, but he knew there must be. It's not difficult to fight. Chen Chen thought to himself. Compared to the campsite of the drug lord he fought in his previous life, the complexity of the layout of this campsite is too low. The north and south are transparent, with a wide shooting range. If you occupy a commanding high point, you can sweep the entire campsite. If the other party wants to hide in the building, Chen Chen will not hesitate to greet them with gas cylinders and cannons. The only troublesome point is that the vegetation around the campsite is relatively lush, and tall trees may obstruct the trajectory of the shells. But this is not an unsolvable problem either. Take advantage of the late night when the guard is lax to get closer and shoot at a high angle. After taking note of all the layouts and selecting the attack location based on the terrain, Chen Chen issued orders to the other 3 in a low voice. Hide on the spot, pay attention to disguise. We need to wait until tomorrow morning when they wake up and observe the functions and personnel concentration of several buildings. Understood. Chen, what time will you wait? The sound of Bao Qi came from the earphones. I don't know, if anyone comes out, we'll withdraw. Chen Chen gave a simple answer and then stopped speaking. From his perspective, it can be seen that all 3 people lurking in front of him, as the incubation time gradually lengthens, their performance also begins to show differences. Bao Qi was very irritable. He couldn't help moving around and even occasionally spoke in a low voice, wanting to chat with others. Chen Chen was so angry that he wanted to give him a radio discipline class immediately. Li Bang has much more rules, mostly not speaking or moving, but Chen Chen found out during routine communication confirmation that he was just asleep. What surprised Chen Chen was actually Shirdakai. He is very stable, so stable that even Chen Chen admires him. Always clear-headed, always vigilant, and able to report the situation he observed in a timely manner according to the principle of intelligence reporting. Although this investigation focused on the same direction because of the military qualities of the other 3 people, Chen Chen could also see what he saw, but having this awareness indicates that he has a certain ability. But he did not receive any training, that is a certain kind of talent. The sky gradually brightened up, and when it was time to retreat, Chen Chen found that Shirdakai's emotions had hardly fluctuated. He has always been pessimistic, cautious, and low-key. Boy, I can't believe his personality flaws can still create such a result. It can also be considered an unexpected joy. All the way back to 600 meters away, 4 people evacuated from the planned evacuation point on the west side of Wankong Lane. After walking for 4 hours, they returned to Mengka. Enough intelligence, prepare to launch an attack. But before starting the battle, Chen Chen still needs to go find the chubby guy from the Mu Gui Corps and confirm with him to accept the bounty half an hour later, in the office. The fat man looked at Chen Chen across in surprise and asked, "Are you really planning to take this order? I have to remind you that Wanha is not easy to win." Previously, there were also small gun groups trying to fight, but basically no one was able to retreat completely. With just a few guns, it's impossible to shoot in, and if we have to use heavy weapons, the cost cannot cover it. Why don't you think about it again? Actually, although our Mugue assessment is strict now, there is still a chance to join. No need, we're ready now. Chen Chen said firmly. The fat man nodded and stopped persuading. Then I will inform the employer and I will also temporarily lock in this reward for you. If someone comes to pick it up in the short term, then you will be the first to do so. Is it reliable? Lock in the bounty. Will our information be exposed? Chen Chen asked cautiously. No, we are very principled in our work, and we absolutely cannot expose your information. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Of course, if you still take the bounty next time, you don't have to come to me. Just finish it yourself and take the evidence to ask the employer for money. I understand. Then I'll trouble the boss this time. He deserves to be the largest mercenary. Well, the largest group. Chen Chen gave a perfect compliment, thanking him for his reminder. After all, I am not very clear about this process. The fat man waved his hand and replied. It's because I see that you seem to have potential that I'm doing you a favor. It's not a big deal, to put it simply, this is also a small investment for us. Anyway, I hope everything goes smoothly for you to win the bounty. I'll borrow your auspicious words. Chen Chen bid farewell and left, while after he left, the fat man picked up the phone. Lao He, someone has taken Wan Hinai's bounty. Tell him over there. Not Shizuri's people. How could they possibly interfere with such meddling? Chisari is training. How come I don't know? Let them come to our place for training. They're also going to fight Wan Hana. Are you joking? When? The fat man's expression became serious. Next week. That's okay, we can't collide. By the time Chisari passes, it's estimated that this group of people will have died long ago. There are only 4 of them, and they want to fight against Wanha. It's just a dream. I see, I won't get involved. What's good to get involved with this kind of broken order? If you want to watch the excitement, go and watch it yourself. There hasn't been any gunfire near Mengka for a long time, so 4 people went to fight against Wanha, which can be considered a decent pleasure. Chapter 10. Fire Advance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The next morning, the combat operation officially began. The atmosphere was not initially tense, as according to Chen Chen's plan, there would be at least 18 hours between the start of the operation and the official engagement. What are these 18 hours for? The answer is somewhat awkward. Transport cannons. They spent their last 1,000 yuan to rent a worn-out Herrick's pickup truck, pulled 2 gas cylinders disguised as building materials and cannons around a huge U-shaped circle. After a total distance of nearly 110 kilometers, they finally arrived at the designated drop-off point on the west side of Wonkong Lane, which was much farther than they had taken a bungee jump before. In addition to considerations of secrecy and security, there is also another reason, of course, because these 2 guns are too heavy and many roads cannot be traveled. A 1.7-meter long cast iron pipeline. 250 mm inner diameter, 12 mm wall thickness. The barrel alone weighs 420 pounds, and the 2 gun racks weigh over 110 pounds. The trampoline can't even pull it after they got off the car. The real test officially began. They must manually transport 2 cannons to a shooting position 200 meters away from the camp between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., complete assembly and camouflage, and cannot be detected by the enemy or exceed the specified time. Once it expires, you must wait another day. If the cannon is left there for a day, the risk of being discovered will sharply increase. It can only be pieced together. The straight line distance is 900 meters, with a downhill distance of 400 meters and an uphill distance of 500 meters. The first transportation was for the gun barrel, and the 4-person team took 40 minutes. The second round of transporting gun racks and shells sharply increased to 70 minutes. Then came the barrel, gun rack, and shells. The hemp rope used to lift the gun barrel caused Chen Chen's shoulders to ache severely, and he even felt a bit dazed. How does he feel like he had an experience of carrying coffins in the countryside and burying them in the mountains in his past life? The method is the same and the weight is the same, but the only difference is probably that you won't be allowed to shout the horn this time. I hope these 2 coffins can contain all the notorious bandits in Wanha. After the last move, the gun frame and barrel were assembled and disguised. Chen Chen personally calculated the trajectory and adjusted the firing angle. At this time, it is 4.30 and the task is completed ahead of schedule. Chen Chen himself was so tired that he almost collapsed to the ground, but he couldn't rest. With the current combat strength of the 4-person team, he absolutely cannot let the other 3 people find their own positions anymore, because under extreme fatigue, their movements are easily deformed, and a little carelessness can be detected by the enemy observing from the tower. So, he can only go by himself, can only defend 1 firepower point alone, and will not have any firepower support. It took him a full half-hour to finally slowly detour from the west side of the camp to the east side, and by this time it was approaching 5 o'clock. Check communication. Chen Chen lay on the ground, turning on the radio and calling softly. Received on the first, in position. Received on the second, in position. Received on the third, in position. Chen Chen breathed a slight sigh of relief as he received answers from 3 people in turn. Attention 1 and 2, fire at 5:20 a.m. Do not move the muzzle. After the first round of firing, reset the gun rack according to the position I marked. Understood. On the first and second, Li Bang and Bao Qi replied one by one. Attention number 3, you are in charge of the southwest tower, and I am in charge of the northwest tower. We need to simultaneously shoot down the opponent's light machine gun firepower points 10 seconds before the shelling begins. After firing, regardless of whether it hits or not, you need to immediately abandon the sniper rifle and use the assault rifle for firepower suppression. Do you understand? Understood. Chen Chen's personnel division of labor was extremely detailed, of course, because the combat quality of the other 3 did not meet the standard. However, the lack of adaptation training was also a major issue. During this period, during the preparation of the gas tank cannon, they also underwent some training in tactical learning, but it was basically a last-minute cramming, and the extent to which they could play a role is still unknown. Therefore, they can only use the most precise and rigid subdivision tasks to ensure the efficiency of execution. Chen Chen is still continuing to issue tasks. Number 1 and Number 2, after completing the shelling, organize the shooting according to the predetermined position. Note that the firing principle is: Number 1 is responsible for 2 buildings in the southwest area, Number 2 and Number 3 are responsible for the central square, and I am responsible for the rest of the area. If there is a blank space in any area and supports other areas, select the target and fire in the order of the 3 of you left and right. Understand? Understood. The 3 of them replied again. This kind of target selection is actually very rigid and inaccurate. But there is no other way. In open spaces, a small team cannot always choose enemies quickly based on the principle of proximity and responsibility interval strategy like in CQB operations. Chen Chen's arrangement is also aimed at ensuring that firepower is not wasted as much as possible. Of course, even such a strategy is considered novel for the other 3. How did they receive such training? Going to the battlefield was also a chaotic battle, and even the commander didn't understand what firepower efficiency was, only shouting, "Give me a fight," at high-value targets. Bao Qi and Li Bang admired Chen Chen even more, while Shidakai took a deep breath, grabbed the handle of the SVD gun, and aimed at the machine gunner resting against the wall on the target tower. Finally, when I issued the forward command, everyone quickly advanced to position 2, and the process did not allow firing. Do you understand? It is not allowed to shoot to ensure the concealment of the propulsion process. At around 5 o'clock, the sun in northern Myanmar had not yet risen and the light was dim. It was not easy to find moving targets in the chaos after being attacked. Understood. Received response, everything is ready. Chen Chen lay quietly on the ground, with the triangle in the sight firmly locking in the enemy on the northwest tower. At the same time, he was also prepared to use the mechanical sight below PSO.1. He cannot rely solely on light sighting because he does not trust Shirdakai. Even if it's only a distance of 200 meters, what if he can't hit? He just learned how to use a sniper rifle. So, one must quickly replenish the gun themselves. Light sight cannot do this, only mechanical sight can do it. Countdown for 1 minute, start loading the shells. Chen Chen gave the order, and Li Bang and Bao Qi immediately took action, while Chen Chen's heart began to accelerate suddenly. This is the most dangerous moment. They will disregard the exposed danger for quick filling, while they must keep an eye on the light machine gunner on the tower and immediately solve any abnormalities. Countdown 15 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire. Chen Chen pulled the trigger and the machine gunner in the northwest corner fell to the ground. Later, he pulled his gun to the left and checked the situation of the machine gunner in the southwest corner, discovering that he had also fallen to the ground. Chen Chen breathed a sigh of relief, and then 2 gas cylinder cannons rang out. Boom! The shell flew out with a primitive, glowing fuse, leaving a trail of smoke in the dimly lit sky. Li Bang and Bao Qi nervously stared at the shells, while Chen Chen angrily cursed. Don't worry about the shells. Get into the firing position and fire. The two of them, who had just woken up from a dream, pounced forward and raised their guns to aim. Within these 3 seconds, Chen Chen had once again used SVD to knock down a patrol bandit who came out from behind the barracks to check the situation upon hearing the sound of gunfire. Bang 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 bang. 381 bars were spewing flames fiercely, carrying out the first round of suppressive shooting on various buildings. At the same time, the high-flying gas cylinder fell down. At this time, find the book Garden www.jiaosuiyuan.com in the Wanha camp. A bandit was awakened from his sleep by the loud sound of gunshots. He instinctively reached out to grab the gun, but just then, a louder bang exploded in front of him. Boom! Something smashed through the roof and landed at his feet. He is torn between liver and gallbladder. Such a situation can only be a military shelling. He urinated at the first moment, truly. But just as he thought he was about to die, he suddenly saw the thing under his feet. It's a gas tank. The person who was just awakened in the barracks spoke up. Gas tank. He saw it clearly and breathed a sigh of relief. Gas tank, then it's okay. Boom. A gas tank shell directly hit De Yun and landed in the largest living quarters pre-designated by Chen Chen, where there were at least 5 enemies and only 1 escaped. The other one landed on the edge of the square, deviating nearly 40 meters from the intended target. However, the power of the 2 shells directly shook Chen Chen. The barracks were torn to powder. The shell that exploded on the square swept through the entire square, which was larger than 2 basketball courts, carrying debris with it. He witnessed with his own eyes a bandit who had just rushed out of the door, his left leg cut off by flying debris, and then fell in an extremely twisted manner. And the unlucky guy who happened to be near the landing point was directly exploded into a mist of blood, sleeping trough. Chen Chen couldn't help but turn on the wheat. Is this thing so powerful?